Being sick sucks. It just does. And I am. Sorry, folks. But I'm still here, and this is Day After Dynamite because it's Thursday. You know what Thursday means. It means it's time to ignite the dynamite. I'm Will Washington. I'm not alone here. Making his Fightful debut. He is when the bat signal calls. Mm-hmm. When we Fightful folk. I guess in that case, it's I guess Denise falls under all categories, but when we're feeling under the weather, who better to call?
Not the Ghostbusters.
No, but the producer extraordinaire. He is a name that costs an extra vowel, by the way.
Does. It's true. It is true. Don't let that throw you off. Don't let it throw you off. But no. there's some people in AEW who spell it differently, and I try to be okay with it. But it is what it is.
That's right. It is Coltrane himself, Mr. Cole Henderson. How you doing, Cole?
I am doing wonderful. I am so happy to be here. The Fightful debut. Does this mean I now have to peddle everyone in chat to give Sean $5? Is that what this kind of like? Is that now kind of what I have to do?
Yeah, or just get used to saying the word humper chat because we do our humper chats.
Yes,
and it's a thing that you have to be accustomed to when you're a part of the Fightful family. Thank you for being a part of Day After Dynamite because we talk about things the day after the Dynamite.
Indeed.
And last night's Dynamite was an interesting one because it took place live from the Coca-Cola Coliseum in Toronto, Canada. It was AEW's debut outside of the United States. That's crazy. And yeah, it was great. So let's stop there. It was it was a great sight. It was a great visual. It was something different, and we're going to talk about a lot of that. We're also going to talk about some of the news surrounding it. Sean got himself a really great scoop. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Don't forget, folks, leave us a thumbs up. Also, donate a super chat or a humper chat. Humperchats.com is the way to leave us a humper chat. And the cool thing about those is you can leave them at any time, and we'll try to get to them throughout the show. If you leave them before the show, if you leave them afterwards, then you're going to have to wait till the next show. But leave them during the show. Also, leave us your super chats, and we're going to be reading the chat all throughout the show and hearing what you have to say about last night's happenings as well. Of course, this wouldn't be Day After Dynamite without a cameo and a stop through, and that means that we're about to be visited by the one and only Jeremy Lambert.
Hey. Will Washington!
Jeremy!
How are you?
I am good.
Well, I'm not
sick.
actually here to talk to you. I'm sorry you're feeling sick. I saw your tweet. I hope you feel better, buddy. I'm not here to talk to you though, Will. My man Cole, who I've never talked to, who I've never met, at least not face to face like this.
Indeed.
2022 Stanley Cup champion.
Let's
Colorado
go. Last night was also the banner raising for your 2022 Stanley Cup champions, the Colorado Avalanche, and it was AEW in Canada. It was like. And for those who don't know, I used to work in hockey, and so this was a big collision of worlds last night. So we'll talk about the Acclaim putting in Austin Matthews in their rap later, because that was I popped very hard for that.
Was a good line. Anytime you work in hockey references, I'm gonna pop for it.
Or Toronto sports, because let me tell you, no one makes themselves quite an easy target, quite like Toronto sports does. So
Christian just immediately out of the gate, like first round losers, bunch of geeks. And they lived up to it last night, losing with 17 seconds left in Montreal. Wasn't good.
It's just another day in Toronto sports. The circle just it goes on and on and on. I got so many stories from those days of working there and just being like, oh my God, Toronto sports, you guys are crazy. So when you think like the First Take stuff is rough with ESPN, and sometimes when they talk about LeBron and all this stuff, let me just tell you, Canada and the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's another level,
it's
man.
Terrible. Yeah. Follow a lot of hockey writers. It is terrible. I was just here to say hi to Cole because I didn't know Cole until like a few weeks ago, it was your birthday, and Sean said happy birthday. And I was like, oh, let's see who this is. I saw the Avalanche paraphernalia on the Twitter, and I was like, I don't know him. He's great though. He's an Avs fan.
He's one of us.
Yes. And then we connected. So this is what I love about Day After Dynamite and Will Washington as well. The forbidden door of wrestling media connecting really me, because I'm the only one who jumps in here when I want to, me with a lot of cool people. So that's why I appreciate you, Will Washington.
It is true that Day After Dynamite is kind of the forbidden door of Fightful, in that we get to have so many people stop through. As a matter of fact, next week's guest is going to be a lot of fun. And when people see next week's guest, it's another one of those bridging the gap kind of things, but we'll see who that is. In the meantime, though, I just saw Sean stop in and then leave.
He's got the Canadian internet that just had him connected and then immediately exited.
He was literally just about to stop through, but I guess not. He was going to come say hi to Cole, but instead, thank you, Jeremy.
I'm going to get out.
I'll say this on the hockey front. I check out playoff hockey, but my sports brain can only be occupied by so much. It's already incredibly saddened and disappointed by my Denver Broncos, and
we won't talk about them.
I have to, because at the same they keep embarrassing themselves.
I'm
on
a
the national
Panthers
stage.
fan, so like I got no room to talk. The Panthers are trash.
Sure, but like, you're not embarrassing yourselves the way Russell Wilson is going out there and proving to be, like, everybody thought, oh, this is the next Peyton Manning. 10 years after the Broncos signed Peyton Manning, and Peyton Manning happened to be a former Super Bowl winner who everybody thought was washed, but then he came back and had the second run of his career and won another Super Bowl. Went to 2 Super Bowls, lost one of them to Russell Wilson. So, like, we thought that this was what was going to happen here, and it just didn't. Hey, there he goes.
Oh, there he
Canadian
is.
internet.
Hey, this is how a real fucking man runs in, eh?
Oh, that's for sure. There's no doubt about it.
What do we got
What do
here?
you do? Why
won't it let me rotate?
Because you have a Samsung Galaxy 3.
There we go.
There we go. Check out this view.
Hey.
Oh, you can't see it. It's too bright.
Yeah. Great view of just lights. And then it's unrotated again.
I will say, you did figure out the screen rotation, though. I have interviewed a number of people who have not been able to figure that out. And
Yes.
and it's like, you know what? Not even going to bother. Let's just do this in portrait mode, and we'll worry about that later.
It is so much handier to hold your phone just right side up vertically. Like, I see why vertical is becoming such a popular thing now with the kids, because they're not playing around at all. They're like, no, we don't care about seeing that extra 6 feet to your right in the shot. We just want to see the action, and I respect that. But I do. I still don't have a ticket to Rampage. I should probably get one. But
do you need me to hit up some people, Sean? Like, I know. I don't know if you know people, but I know people.
I
So
don't.
maybe
I don't. But they were going for like $3 on Game Time earlier. So I'm pretty sure I won't have trouble getting one.
Oh yeah, I was looking at those because I was looking at. I follow tickets a lot. It's a thing I do in my spare time. But I was following how the tickets were doing for yesterday's show, and I was seeing how how high tickets were for like floor seats for yesterday. They were very hard to find, and I was seeing that they were still above face value like hours before the show. Rampage, on the other hand, single digits for floor seats. It's people are really struggling to get rid of those.
The tickets that I got for last night, like a few weeks before I bought them, were going for twice as much. Then they came back down to earth, fortunately. But they got bought up immediately, and I didn't. Maybe you could lend some insight on this, Will, because I don't know if you would have known. I wonder if the second show also got snatched up by scalpers, and then the scalpers was like, "Oh shit."
Yeah, I think that's exactly what happened. Is that the scalpers went for both. Dynamite, I think they probably made a killing on, but Rampage, I think they're kind of realizing. And I don't think the card helped, by the way. I'm sorry, but like,
we didn't know what the card was at all until yesterday. And even in the venue, I left only knowing the FTR match because a lot of that stuff didn't play in-house. Either that or I was taking a giant piss while it happened. Sorry. I'm getting my chicken tendies while that was going on. I don't actually like men's wrestling. I don't respect it whatsoever.
During the Nyla Rose backstage segment, you just had to go to the bathroom.
I actually saw that. I think.
Rose.
But the thing is, I was able to go home and watch it and know what was happening. But yeah, there wasn't a lot to kind of put in. I think maybe that they got the Ethan Page thing on Rampage, so some of the locals will want to come watch that, which makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I kind of figured out before the Minnesota pay-per-view, like I don't really need to go to Rampage before a pay-per-view anymore. Like, or at all, maybe.
Yeah, I thought going into this month, which I believe all of the Rampages in October are all standalone Rampage tapings.
Yeah,
I thought that meant beefing up those cards. And I know at least with this one, that is not the case at all.
I just beefed up that A&W that I just ate right there. But yeah, I hate it because I want Rampage to be incredible. But at this point, I don't do the Friday show because not a lot of groundbreaking stuff happens on there. I'll pop in if there's some news that I have to send along. But largely, it's just, I don't want to say it's missable because I always end up watching Rampage and SmackDown, obviously. It's just one of those things, like I feel like I could miss the show type of thing, especially live, which I gotta get up at 4 a.m. for my flight. I'm like, should I go to this? I don't know.
Overall, though, how was your experience?
Oh, it was positive. It was great. Mainly because FightfulSelect.com within the first 20 minutes of the tapings had scoops confirmed. Jody Threat, the Voros twins were on Dark, which we reported. Jody Threat I've been tooting that horn for 3+ years. She helped Trish Stratus get ready for her in-ring return. She had a tryout, and then the pandemic happened. She's really good. She should be signed somewhere right now. The Voros twins are very unique, and they're like TikTok stars.
They're TikTok sensations. They do huge numbers.
I mean beyond huge numbers. I posted pictures of all kinds of stuff that happened last night. By far, the Voros twins, who got clowned by people who didn't know who they were easily the most engagement that I got of anything. Let me look. It is.
I know people who don't follow wrestling who know who they are because they know the whole Da Vinci bit. That's
exactly
a thing people know on TikTok.
And it has 830 retweets right now. My picture of them being there. It's just the tweet analytics. 450,000 impressions, 20,000 engagements on that thing. And I was just like, oh, well, I know these guys. We did an interview with them. They did the Da Vinci thing. They do actually very funny TikTok videos, I think. They're pretty funny. But Jody Threat was over huge. I mean, that was a very smart way to kick off that show, was by putting Jody Threat on it. And the pace of that event, it was about 2 hours, 55 minutes. It was perfect in that sense because they didn't have to film a Rampage afterward or a Dark afterwards because they're coming back today and doing it. I just wonder what they'll do tonight to keep the crowd up and all that.
Yeah, I wonder very much as well because I know they're going to do, I think it's just a 2-hour taping. I think they're just taping Dark and...
Really?
Yeah. I think it's just Dark and Rampage. They may do 2 episodes of Dark. Usually they do, I guess. They've
I would love a 2-hour taping. I would love it. I have no idea when it starts. 7, 8, something like that. I mean, it doesn't matter. They could do 7 and be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in this case, nothing's airing live. So really, I would go for the earlier. Don't have people sitting there late. But yeah. Oh, and last thing, you had a huge story today on an AEW recently signed talent, that being one Saraya.
Yes.
And you got some details all over her exit from WWE.
So FightfulSelect.com for the full story. Get us back up to 10K, guys. I'd greatly appreciate that. Ask Grapsody will be on today as well. Jimmy Van's doing a special Q&A. But for people that are under the impression that the likes of Christian and Saraya just like, I'm going somewhere that can just wrestle. I can just wrestle. No, WWE offered to let Saraya wrestle. In fact, WWE, after her deal was up, and we've got a lot of details on her deal coming up, Triple H actively tried to recruit her, made some, I've got specific pitches, specific things that they like let her know about how they would handle this, but they were going to let her wrestle. I don't know to what degree or how often, but it seemed very much like a she can go out on her terms type of thing. But I mean, I don't know that she wanted to go out on any terms because she's like 30, if even that, like 29 or 30. So there's a lot of conjecture and misinformation out there about like, oh, WWE got her this doctor, that doctor. Nope, didn't happen. Details are on FightfulSelect.com. The only way you will have a more clear, concise picture of this is if she just gets on Twitch one day and she's like, you know what? I'm going to talk about all this stuff. There's an awful lot of detail there. And we've got news on an Impact Wrestler's contract today, too. Not Chris Bay, even though I hit Chris Bay up twice this year. And I said, hey, Chris Bay, I know your contract's up in October. What's up? And he left me on red. I didn't get to even report that his contract was coming up. He could, Chris, buddy, my friend, you could have got more. You could have got more.
October is actually a big month for these Impact contracts coming up. You, of course, reported just a few days ago about the Kingdom's contract and how they were up. We actually talked about that in our interview with Maria.
She was so refreshingly transparent. I loved it.
Yeah, she was incredibly transparent about that. And to the point of where, you know, she had indicated to us that they're possibly not re-signing. And I thought after the Bound for Glory results that I had been worked. And, and then
they had TV tapings the next day.
Yeah, and then the TV tapings the next day. I'm like, okay.
They love doing that. Impact loves doing that, man. And NWA's picked it up a little bit. It's just they never take titles off of anybody. They just let Tyrus have a 200-year run.
I mean, they create a new title whenever they feel like it.
I mean, I do think it's kind of fun that they're like, hey, you're the Funkasaurus, so we're going to give you a guy who has the talent of an actual prehistoric wrestler this title, and you're gonna have like a Jurassic reign with it. But Impact's getting real smart about that. But then you got like WrestleVote's putting out there WWE wants Chelsea Green, and I hit up Chelsea and she goes, wish they'd tell me that. But and I'll have more on that this weekend. But I mean, she wasn't the only one. Like after the Billy Batty bullshit, I spoke to Karrion Kross about like what happened with him and that. And I was like, buddy, I hear you're getting a call soon. And he goes, I haven't heard anything. So, I mean, there's precedent there.
I mean, there's extreme precedent there. I spoke with Dakota, and it was like, so what's going on? Like, right before SummerSlam, what's going on?
Yeah.
I don't know. Happy Hunter's back. Hope something cool comes. Oh, cool. I'm working SummerSlam all of a sudden. Like, that's how quickly things can move. And that's, especially right now, if they've got plans, they'll put that contract in front of you and have 3 or 4 people surrounding you, pressuring you to sign it.
And I sat on a little story about specifically Dakota's signing for a while, though I'll probably add some more too. But there are a lot of these signings that don't just instill confidence in the main roster, because you know how political wrestling is. Sometimes people will be like frustrated because they're like, oh no, I'm losing my spot. I won't get TV time, etc. Well, so many of those people didn't have anything to be frustrated about because they still weren't getting TV time, even though the roster was depleted. It was just the same match over and over again. And I specifically heard from some NXT people that were like, well, if they brought back Dakota, that's a very, very good sign, because she was one of those sort of hybrid wrestlers where she was an NXT wrestler, but you know that if you plopped her down on Raw or SmackDown, she's going to fit in right there. Like, she's going to adapt and it's going to be fine. Wendy Chu is a lot like that. I think Toxic Attraction are a lot like that too. Like, you know, they'll be able to adapt. So that instilled an awful lot of confidence. So, I mean, right now, I mean, July, August, and September were the most brutal months to cover pro wrestling, like, as far as not getting sleep. As far as, like, just not wanting to do it, it was probably speaking out. Like, I didn't want to cover anything then. It sucked so bad. But the last few months have just been brutal, and now it's become, like, fun. Like, just the wrestling is good. Interesting shit is happening. We're going to see a Jeff Jarrett 99 situation sooner than later. It's going to happen one day. It will happen. And I can't wait
Make a prediction. Make a prediction.
My prediction is that it'll probably just actually be Jeff Jarrett again.
That's fair. That's very fair.
You know what's funny is I have been kind of in this old, something's just wacky up here, but I have been reading old observers from that time period.
Yeah.
Specifically, I was like, all right, I want to pull up October 99 observers, because, like, for those not aware long enough, if you think that, like, Meltzer's beef with Vince Russo was, like, recent stuff, no, he's been on that man's neck since, like, the mid 90s. And so there's fewer fun reads than Meltzer covering the first few months of Russo in WCW, but in real time, as in, like, little things where Meltzer's reporting that Russo has given an edict that if anybody has a hold in a match on longer than 5 seconds, then they're getting fined. Like, little things like that.
Oh my God.
And this isn't real time. This isn't one of those, like, hindsight kind of things. You're, like, hearing Meltzer report that Russo is actively telling WCW wrestlers, the less wrestling you do, the better. And he's, like, actively trying to create a show where it's wrestling without wrestling. It's great stuff to read because, I don't know. I love news from the time. That's
of course.
And I love that they're all available. So.
And seeing how it's covered, I learn an awful lot by reading how, the good and bad, reading how things were covered back then. Caden says, have you had poutine yet? No, but I'll tell you what, I really enjoyed the gravy that the Kentucky Wildcats dropped all over your college team a few weeks ago. So suck on that one, buddy.
And by the way, Chi-Town Spurs said, Broncos country, let's ride.
Oh, God.
I mean, I have a Ford Bronco, so I'll rock with that now.
I mean, like, riding off a right now we're riding off a cliff. I saw somebody post the Broncos country, let's ride, and then it said the ride, and it was the Kennedy.
Dude, Russ has been a free agent for 2 weeks in my fantasy league. I never thought I'd see the day.
I saw somebody say they dropped Russ for Geno Smith, which is a tremendous.
I love it.
It's a good pickup. Yeah, it is. It's a really good pickup.
Someone who can throw a forward pass these days. It's crazy.
Buddy, I picked up, what's his name? Taysom Hill, just in case shit happens again. Just in case some shit happens.
All right, well, insurance. I had Dynamite to get to now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Dynamite. Who would care?
We're getting hockey stories, I thought, Will.
That was great little way to go out. The great little way to go out. All right. Thanks,
Bye.
Jeremy.
Cole, nice meeting you. We will talk some hockey throughout this season. Will, I hope you feel better, buddy.
I hope everybody. So too. Gonna drink some more water here. You know, everybody always says that, by the way. When you have a cold or anything, they're like, stay hydrated. You know what that does for me? I've just been peeing a lot, but I don't feel any better.
You just go to the bathroom, which means, like, and especially, like, if you've got like a cold or something like that that's giving you aches, it's like, great, now this is making me get up and down and up and down. Like, I don't want to move now at all.
This isn't working.
My head's
throbbing.
I'm
doing it. Yeah, every time I talk to somebody, I'm like, hey, I've been sick. And they're like, make sure you stay hydrated. I'm like, okay.
Cool.
Just peeing a bunch, but all right.
I think this is helping. It's like it's such a mentality thing. I don't, maybe there's some kind of elixir in there. I don't know. I don't feel it.
Yeah, I don't know. I've done a whole bunch of vitamin C again. Just taking suggestions from people because everybody's got the same suggestion when you say you're sick. You say, "Oh, I'm not feeling very good," and they say, "Hey, make sure to get some vitamin C in. Drink some hot tea." And okay. I've actually done all of it. I ate an entire grapefruit this morning. No, it's 100% of your daily value of vitamin C. And I took some vitamin C.
This is like the Phil Mike Granny like advice, like drink all the water, get your grapefruits and all that. Like you'll feel better. And I don't know why Grandma's a Monty Python character, but you get the point. It's at the end of the day, it's like, do any of these things work? Who really knows? I mean, I like when I get sick, I find the airborne and do that for like a little vitamin C kick. Does it really help? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
In my mind, sure.
I don't know. I think ultimately, like all colds, it's just going to pass with time.
Indeed.
So I will be past this probably, hopefully by Saturday. I'm not all, but yeah, we'll see. Anyway, so the Eloquent says, loved Dynamite last night. Shouts out to SRS. And yeah, as you just saw, Sean was there. And he's still in Canada. But
ooh.
Yeah, definitely read that saraya story because there's some great details in there. And yeah, a lot of people kind of took the story of her getting cleared by Doc Samson and basically ran with it as she ran away from WWE because she wasn't cleared there and she ran to a place that would clear her. Not the case. That is not the case.
Yeah.
And anybody who engages in reporting probably shouldn't have even run with that as a narrative, because at that point you run the risk when you say things like that of passing your conjecture off as because what was a fact was that she was cleared by Doc Samson. What wasn't fact was where she hadn't been cleared before. So again, just be careful with stuff like that. I've even made that mistake before, right? Where I've had reports, but then I made some speculation about MJF back in May. And I had a lot of people in my inbox saying, hey, what you speculated there wasn't correct. And I thought, okay, see? And that's the issue you run into where when you mix your conjecture in with it helps to be extremely clear. It helps to be extremely clear about those things like that. So just keep that in mind. You know who else? Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Well, yeah, Twitter's just it's a funny world as far as like when something gets someone hits tweet on anything, like even if it's speculation, it's crazy how far that can be taken into the realm of like, oh, this is actually what's happening, when it's like you have to be I found that like in Twitter, if you're speculating something, you have to just be like, this is pure speculation, by the way, otherwise someone will run with it and take it as like, oh, that's the candor that's going around. Okay. And like, I think I would like to think that at least we've learned that step quite a bit as Twitter has gone on in the year 2022. Yeah. And obviously the stuff with Saraya has been going on for a long time.
Yep. And I've tried my best to be very clear about when something is something that I'm reporting as something I've at least done some gathering on, or even stuff I've heard, or just stuff that's off the top of my head.
Right.
Speaking of which, so our buddy Ariel Helwani, he set Twitter a storm yesterday with really what I thought was a fairly mild statement about his Tony Khan interview. He called it kind of a frustrating experience. He talked about how, he and for those who have seen it, he pretty much presses Tony Khan 6 times in a row about CM Punk and the Elite. Doesn't get an answer. I thought maybe 3 is probably where you might want to move on. because it's all interviewer discretion, right? Like I've gotten crap for what people have called softball questions in interviews and things like that. But it's little things where if something is indicated to me that it's not going to be talked about. Granted, I know no comment is news. So some people feel like if you can even get somebody to go no comment, you can still make news out of that. To me, I'm like, okay, I only have so much time with this person. And if they've already indicated to me that they're not going to address this topic, then I need to move on. Even if I can try and approach it from different angles. But if you're a good enough read on people, you can kind of gather that, look, they're not going to open up about this at all. And so, but again, interviewer discretion. It's really up to the interviewer. It's up to the question asker as to whether or not they want to pursue those topics. I remember back at the Double or Nothing media scrum, Nick Hausman asks the first question to Tony, and he says, "So what's going on with MJF?" And Tony says, "I'm not going to talk about that." A whole bunch of people came at us saying, "Why didn't you press him any further?" And I said, because I knew he wasn't going to talk about it. Right. Like, at least that's what I got out of it, was that he said, "I'm not going to talk about this." And I get one question, and I know that if I we all get one question, right? And it's like, okay, Nick's already asked this one. I know what's coming here if I then say, okay, but really, what about MJF?
Right. It's a waste of everyone's time if everyone's just going to ask the same question and he just stands up there for 7 times and just goes, "I'm not going to talk about it." And then he's done. Like, then you get nothing out of there. And there were plenty of things that came out of that press conference, and especially, we all forget about that one because, of the one that happened most recently. But, at the end of the day, if you're going to press, Ariel was doing, I mean, he had the one-on-one time and he had the time allotted for it. He has every right to ask those questions for sure.
Sure. Absolutely. I think he does have, and I think there's great reason to ask those questions. I think 100%. If you have Tony Khan in front of you, you'd be crazy not to ask those questions. I think that, everything that we've been told up to this point is that it is a legal matter. And, obviously, when it comes to legal matters, it's not so much that you can't speak on them, but it's that you probably would. You should. Most would advise you until things are kind of wrapped and sealed not to, in case, things can be used against you. Yes. So therefore, I get the idea that if there is a legal matter going on right now, that all has to have a bow put on it. I fully understand that, but I also get. Ariel's view on that. Where I think he messed up and he pissed off, as he called them, the AEW Freakazoids, was his statement that I believe he said that if you believe that AEW programming is better than WWE programming right now, you're lying. That, I think, is where, look, pro wrestling is subjective. It's entirely subjective. Everybody's approach to pro wrestling at the moment in time is very, very different. And some approaches are for some people, some aren't. And so I think when you make blanket statements like that and you have the size of the platform he has, I do think you absolutely run the risk of what he got, which is that, like, if I say, if you like Star Wars better than Star Trek, you're lying. Like, I mean, granted, I like Star Trek better than Star Wars, but yes, I am a Trek guy. I love Star Wars, but I am a Trek guy. You
and me both. We're gonna have to have a longer conversation about that before all the viewers go like, "Oh God, here come the Trekkies."
Look, I absolutely at some point want to like do a Deep Space Nine podcast and just like fully revisit it. So.
Guess you're calling me. I guess. Well, hey, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, you've just seen what can happen here. But it's coming.
But what you're going to get when you make that kind of a statement, or at least you should when you have that big of a platform. Again, when you have things that are divided the way they are, in any way, and then you make a statement you make a subjective statement as fact, you know what's going to happen. Whether it's as an Android user, right? If I just point blank said, look, if you say iPhone is better, you're lying. Like, there are millions of iPhone users out there. What the fuck are you talking about? You know what's going to happen here when that comes up. It's if you're an Xbox player and you say, if you say Xbox is better, you're lying. And you could even try to qualify it all you want. But the fact is, there are fans of specific products, and you know that there are people whose products aren't for them. Which is why I really feel like 2 years ago, I made a commitment to stop making statements like that. And my commitment was to start using the term not for me. That has been my go-to phrasing constantly. And I feel like that in this case it should avoid anyway. A lot of times I'll say, that match wasn't for me. And I'll still have my tweets lit up with, that match should have been for you. And I'm like, but it wasn't. What else am I supposed to say?
And that's the part. Yeah, that's the part. It doesn't make any sense. It's like you're at that point. I feel like saying something like that invites a polite discord, right? Where it's like, or discourse, excuse me, where it's a case of, okay, this is not for me, and someone can then go, well, here's why it is for me, and explain a reasoning to that, and not necessarily to go like, hey, this is why it has to be for you. Because at the end of the day, like, I feel the same way about a lot of things in wrestling. There are some things that click, some things that don't. And ultimately, you're going to, like, I'm willing to see both sides and see where people are coming from to go like, this is why this does it for me, and I think that's where the most fun in wrestling comes from is people will have completely different perspectives on the same thing. I think the tricky part about this situation too is, I think in the clip that was circulating around, he mentions like, oh, the AEW marks are going to come after me for this. I know like all of us in this space, everyone takes their time and effort to recognize the tribalism that can occur in wrestling Twitter, in the internet wrestling community. It is what it is. It exists. I don't think that doesn't seem to me, the AEW marks weren't even the ones who like that super fandom, that wasn't the one he riled up. He actually riled up all the WWE guys, and they were all like, yeah, he's so right. And like, they all started coming in, and that's where I started seeing all of the just like the communication on Twitter break down over all of this. And, it's one thing to acknowledge the tribalism, but like, when you acknowledge it, you got to be aware that like, that doesn't mean like you're not going to say something, like everything that you say from that point doesn't feed into it, because at the end of the day, like, especially someone who has that kind of platform in Hawaii, like, it's going to make noise and it's going to ruffle feathers.
Yep. And Tony had asked, he said, hey, well, happy to see you and hope you are well. What is your opinion on the Hawaii comments, or will we get that Saturday? No, you got it today. I guess the only thing I'll add is that, like I said, I didn't think what he said about the Tony interview was all that bad. I think he should have known what he was stoking when he brought up his opinion on the shows, which again, everybody's entitled to their opinion. It's just a matter of then when you say that people who disagree are lying, then that's when you create an unnecessary discourse. And then I thought where he really fell apart was his response to what I thought was a fair question, which is, of course, bringing up the fact that Tony wouldn't address this, Tony wouldn't address that. And people were like, well, you didn't even ask Hunter about, and you had him in front of you, like in person, and you didn't even ask him about the Vince allegations, which directly led to his becoming head of creative. Isn't that something you should have asked about? And I thought his response to that was really, really bad. And that's probably, again, I thought that was I guess if you're going to play one topic, that's, most would say that's a whataboutism, but again, it's one of those, talking about pressing for questions, pressing for important topics. Like, again, CM Punk is one of those things where we all want answers as fans. Once we know we're not going to get them, it's kind of easy to move on. And I feel like that's another one where, as fans, a lot of people do want answers of like,
Yeah.
what did Hunter know about any of that? And what would he be willing to do to change that environment to make sure that that kind of thing doesn't happen again where he is, considering it wasn't just Vince, it was Vince executives as well.
Yes.
So what is there a plan to fix that? Like that's kind of important stuff
That's a legitimate question.
Yeah. I thought his response to that wasn't all that great. So either way, those are my opinions on the topic.
Yeah.
Let's see. Tony P brings up, Tony P says, I like both matches, but it does look like, and hang on one second. As a matter of fact, I'm getting a really important call. So I actually need you to kind of.
It's time for me to riff. It's time for me to riff. Well, I will say, as far as just kind of, wrapping Helwani's frustrations here with the comments of Tony Khan's interview I think a lot of the frustration probably stems more from Tony turning a lot of the questions into kind of ad reads for, Rampage and Dynamite that night I think he mentioned the 15 minutes going over a ton of times as far as their viewership on TBS and TNT for Rampage and Dynamite that week. And anytime you kind of, you get the workaround of, I'm not going to answer this, but hey, make sure you watch this. You start feeling like you're just kind of the PR plug for a little bit there. So I can understand where some of that frustration comes in, but maybe it just boiled over a little bit into a difficult situation. But I've got the YouTube chat up here right now, so I'm going to take a look and see what we're getting into here. Redmond Survivor says, what did you think of Renee's debut, Cole? Well, I am very excited to talk about this. I'm very excited for Will to chime in on this. It's awesome to see Renee back in wrestling. Around actually the same weekend in Vegas. I was originally running a studio for Blue Wire, and that's how I got to meet Will and Denise and everybody and host their shows in the Blue Wire studio. If you've seen that picture for Grapsity of them all in that studio, that was from those days. We had Renee that weekend too. Renee is one of the nicest human beings on the planet, and someone whose name, that rings in wrestling, and it's she's broken down a lot of barriers, and I think it always seemed like from the outside looking in a matter of time for her to get back into wrestling, because it's just something that it fits her too well, and she's so good at it. And I think there's not a bad thing to say as far as Renee Paquette is concerned, and I think that makes it a home run. And what a great place for her to debut. Other than Canada, and getting that pop and that reaction had to have been an amazing moment for her. I send all the best, and I'm sure will chime in on this as well. I think it's going to help their backstage game a ton. I think that's what she was doing for WWE for a good period of time, and she was really good at it. She's always been good at I think the backstage commenter is also a character, and I think we've lost a little bit of that as far as some of the WWE stuff is concerned. But we're getting back to it, which I like. So, Will, we're talking a little bit about Renee Paquette's debut.
Yeah,
in AEW.
Renee. So that was Renee. So she was announced right before Dynamite. She got her All Elite graphic. This was rumored as far back as Friday that she would be signing with AEW. WWE actually leaked that one. In case you didn't figure out by who had that, because certain, I guess, cheese eaters even had that one. And I had it as well. Like a lot of people had this one, and that was I can only speculate as to why they would put that one out there and leak that one to the sheets, but obviously they had attempted to contact her initially, and had made some type of move to bring her in. But she is signed. She's signed to AEW. I don't know what that actually means in terms of what she's going to be doing. She talked about it, of course, on the most recent episode of The Sessions. Came out today. She talked about how she's been at these shows with Moxley a lot and how she feels like she should be working. That it's hard to just be a guest. She was like, being in catering and sure, I'll grab something to eat or something along those lines. But she felt like she should be doing something when she's there. And she is signed. She's there. She's going to be at the shows each week. It was really good to see her. And that reception she got to open the show was very good. I was very happy with that.
Very good and very well deserved. And in Canada too. It was everything was all coming together. And I think I see a lot in the chat here about the connection of, well, AEW is aired on the Turner platforms. What else does Turner have? They also have hockey. I'm speculating, of course, but as a fan of her work and what she does, and knowing she's done stuff for NHL Network in the past, I think that's a slam dunk if they can make that work somehow. I think she would love to do that. So, I think that would be. There's so many doors I feel like that this just opens up as far as the partnership goes in a big picture setting.
Yeah, and of course, one thing we haven't talked about here is Kathleen Finch of Discovery and now Warner Brothers Discovery recently did an interview, and Hollywood Reporter had put out her quotes, and she had talked about kind of the future of AEW, which, gotta say, she was the name people were most concerned about in the merger of Warner Brothers and Discovery. She was the name people were most worried about having an eye on AEW and whether or not she wanted wrestling content and whether or not the future looked any good for AEW as far as she was concerned. But the interesting thing is that, and of course I've been doing some reporting on this. Look, I talked to people at Warner Brothers Discovery, and the people I talked to is the people I've talked to aren't like low level people. So that's the piece I find the most interesting. These are people who kind of have a little bit of an authoritative say. When I talk to them, they're not in PR mode when I'm talking to them. They're giving me their honest opinions about things that are happening in pro wrestling as the whole landscape looks and as far as AEW looks. So, but one of the things she said yesterday was that they were interested in doing other types of programming, that they wanted non-in-ring content out of AEW, was how she had put it. And I am curious what that means, because to me, that's why I tweeted yesterday, look, if there's anybody good at non-in-ring content for a pro wrestling company, Renee Paquette. She is the one. Mm-hmm. If you could give her a sit-down interview show every week, like, absolutely do it. I would. That she 100%. Would be my go-to. But yeah,
I think it's interesting. Immediately the tweets came out of Tony Khan has done it, and it was a picture of WWE backstage, and it was everybody that has signed.
No, granted, they always crop Booker out of that picture because it's the only way that picture works.
That's not gonna happen. That's not gonna happen. But I mean, yeah, in for all intents and purposes, it's a slam dunk. There's
great signing.
I challenge anyone to say anything bad about it. It's not gonna happen.
And so here we have she introduced Christian. Christian makes his way to the ring, or not to the ring. He makes his way on the stage, cracks on the Toronto crowd a little bit to bring out Luchasaurus, who comes out to face Jungle Boy Jack Perry, as that is his full name now.
Yeah,
they went back for 1 week, which I think was just like a mistake. I think somebody just like didn't have their notes in order and accidentally ran Jungle Boy again. But he is officially and fully Jungle Boy Jack Perry. And he and Luchasaurus went out there and had themselves a bit of a match. Some of the things I liked about the match were the fact that I thought they worked it as two people who dislike each other.
Yeah.
I think that I bought very much their hatred in the match. I bought very much I bought Luchasaurus as somebody who wanted to get the best, not just the best of Jungle Boy, but to hurt Jungle Boy. Yeah, I bought all of it, and I thought it came off great. I thought it was a really good match. Crowd was really into it. Crowd was actually kind of split. I can see
Yeah.
that, right? Because you have half the crowd who likes Jungle Boy as a performer. I think half the crowd also does like Luchasaurus, but also Luchasaurus is tied to Christian, who is
Yes.
Canadian. And yeah, I liked it. I know Luchasaurus isn't really for everybody, and like, you know, I think part of Luchasaurus's appeal is that he always had such a great hot tag. That's why I wasn't so down on. I mean, that's why I wasn't so up on splitting them in the first place, right?
Right.
Because I think that what Luchasaurus does best is hot tag spots, is working the comeback spot in the match off of Jungle Boy being beaten down, like he does so well in that. And I think that when you take that element from him away and you essentially leave him to be just a singles performer, I don't know if he has as much to offer in that regard. But all that said, I thought they both delivered. Luchasaurus, of course, gets the win due to Christian's interference. But Jungle Boy had some pretty close ones. Jungle Boy hit that Poison Rana in this match.
Yes. Oh my God. And it looked like Luchasaurus was like flipping in slow motion when that was going on. Yeah, I think that was, I think you hit the nail right on the head as far as like, this was a match that had the animosity in it. Anyone who goes I need my storytelling in wrestling. There was a good amount of storytelling within the wrestling here. And you could tell the mixed emotions of Jungle Boy, and like I think he even at one point like literally put his like head to his head and was like, "You were my best friend," and before he hit a move on him, and then of course hitting Kill Switch on Luchasaurus, always a good touch to take the manager's finisher.
Luchasaurus like on his knees because like a Kill Switch otherwise would look incredibly weird. Luchasaurus being that much
he'd
taller.
have to like I don't know if his spine can contort like that because of the size difference, so he needed to take a seat.
I mean, honestly, for the usual words you hear of like, well, I don't just like matches, I like matches to have story. All 5 matches that were advertised for last night. Now, granted, there were 6 matches because 1 got added on, but all 5 advertised matches all had story going into them. All had kind of significant story going into them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy. Jungle Boy still has some revenge to get on his folks in Jurassic Express.
Yes.
And so what came next? Was it the tag team match that saw?
Yes. Factory and Warjo, or Factory.
Yeah.
Was it Warjo? Yeah, it was Warjo.
Warjo. And we'll talk about ratings in a sec, guys, as I can see you all arguing ratings in the chat.
And
there's a segment of this show for that.
And also before that, Renee did her first backstage hit, and it was Ethan Page and Matt Hardy in Private Party. I
am curious what happens there, because they put a big stipulation on Rampage this week where if Private Party, so they revealed that Private Party's contracts have been purchased. So Andrade no longer owns them. They now belong to the firm, but that there will be a match that will see Ethan Page take on Isaiah Cassidy on this Friday's Rampage, actually taped tonight. And if Ethan Page wins, he not only continues to own Private Party's contracts, also owns Matt Hardy's.
Mm-hmm.
What? Like,
what do you want with that?
I know. And more than that, what?
Yeah.
Like,
I thought
the one part I don't want to see from the firm is them owning anybody's contract. I mean, I don't want to see Matt Hardy with the firm. If there's anybody who fits in less with this already misfit group of people, it's Matt Hardy.
Yes. Especially the direction they seem to be going with Matt Hardy. I've enjoyed the stuff that's kind of gone around as far as like, him in his backstage segments and saying he's sorry to everybody and asking them to beat him up. Because I am a unabashed huge fan of Broken Matt Hardy. I love it. I ate that shit up constantly. Like at the end of the day, like I was like, ooh, is this how we're gonna break him again? Like I'm always looking forward to that. This doesn't fit that storyline, so I'm always like, what exactly is going on? And with the Firm being like a group that's like, advertised as, they're together for a very specific time, and you won't necessarily see them all together all the time. Them adding members seems like a interesting. That doesn't seem to correlate, but who knows?
I see no reason to add Private Party to that group. I
No.
mean, look, Private Party and Stokely sounds like a great combination.
Yes.
Private Party with Stokely and also the Ass Boys and also W. Morrissey and also Ethan Page doesn't make any sense. And then also Ethan Page, he shouldn't be losing. So like,
no,
this is like a complete no-win situation for me. I don't want to see either side win this match.
Right. Yeah, it's not sure what's going on there. But also, yeah, we gotta heat Ethan Page back up, because that dude is he's dynamite on the microphone, and he's great in the ring too. So like we gotta, I don't know how to feel about this. I think we both kind of have the same reaction of like, huh? What?
Yes. So then we had the Warjo versus Factory match. We saw QT Marshall tagging with Nick Comoroto, taking on Wardlow and Samoa Joe. It's basically just a showcase of Wardlow and Samoa Joe. But after they get a quick victory, they are interrupted by the Embassy. It's the first time we've gotten to see Prince Nana on the mic in AEW. I'll always love that. I'll always take that. And so, okay, I have to sidetrack for a second because the chat is just like all over the place. And talking about some of the stuff Warner Brothers is doing. Because I got called out for something yesterday, and I just want to address this real quick.
Sure.
So somebody noted to me that Warner Brothers shouldn't be celebrated for keeping AEW when they're cutting all the jobs they're cutting. Two things can be true here. In that I, as a Warner Brothers fan, as a fan of pretty much, there are a few properties in my life that I'm not a fan of, or that I'm a fan of that like aren't owned by Warner Brothers, right? Like I'm a big Batman fan. I love most things DC. Grew up on Cartoon Network, watch a whole lot of HBO. I recognize that the stuff that they're cutting is shitting on a whole lot of jobs, and it's not good. That Warner Brothers was shedding money for a long time, not good. And that's not what I want to see. Of course, I want to see, I still want to see the Batwoman movie happen. There's a lot of things I still want to see, and I believe we should see. I also do recognize that I'm also a fan of professional wrestling. And I do recognize that when companies want to cut costs, but continue to produce original content, the easiest way to do that is professional wrestling. And so like between those two things, I can see how professional wrestling is going to benefit from cost cutting when it comes to still wanting to put out original content. I also recognize that a lot of my favorite content out there is being harmed by this. I can recognize more than one thing. Now, yes, as being said in the chat, Cartoon Network is still going to be a channel, but the studio has pretty much been absorbed by Warner Animation Studio, so it's not necessarily going to be producing its own content per se. But look at how cable's been going as a whole. Cable is in a lot of ways becoming a hub for streaming shows and adding commercials. A lot of cable networks are basically just taking the stuff from their streaming platforms and just adding commercials, and that's pretty much it. And that's a lot of what we're seeing here. So it's going to be where we are definitely in a transformative period for the way we consume television.
Yeah.
I was even just having a talk with my daughter just yesterday about like cable and how like what the hell is cable to her?
Right.
She doesn't care.
Wild. She's gonna like grow up, and that's not gonna be like that's not the thing. Like that was for us growing up. It was like cable was everything. Like it's
cable
just,
was the place to find stuff, right?
When,
but like for her, she even doesn't even realize that her favorite shows are all cable shows, right? Like her favorite shows are all Disney Channel shows, and I'm like, well, Disney Channel is a cable network, and she looks at me like, okay, I don't watch it on cable. I watch it whenever I want. And I'm not going to sit around and wait for the newest episode of Raven's Home. I wait for when it pops up on my app, that's when I watch it. Like, okay, all right, fine.
Right.
But anyway, this led to, of course, FTR making their way down. FTR introduces Shawn Spears. Big pop for Shawn Spears. He's back in 10 mode. He did say in an interview recently that he warned Preston Vance that he was coming back for it. Preston Vance even said in an interview he was talking about it was with Robbie Fox, and he talked about Shawn Spears giving him the blessing to be number 10, but ultimately Shawn Spears is coming back, and when he comes back, he wants his 10 gimmick back. He came back, and he is doing the 10 thing.
He's
again.
got it. He's back.
Got it. And he will be teaming with he'll be teaming with FTR this week to take on the Embassy. Cool. It's happening on Rampage.
Yeah. I think it was interesting that I think wasn't the last time that we saw Shawn Spears, wasn't it in the cage match with him and MJF and Wardlow, and his first appearance he comes out, it's with Wardlow in the ring. I think they had a little interesting back and forth in there.
I appreciated that actually.
Yeah.
I appreciated that Shawn Spears comes out, he's high-fiving FTR, and then him and Wardlow kind of look at each other at first, and he gives kind of a look of, all right, I know, I was MJF's guy. It's weird that like the Pinnacle is just back in full form, except for MJF.
Except for MJF.
They'd even said they're advertised this week in the match. It says the Pinnacle versus the Embassy. They are the Pinnacle. The only person missing from the Pinnacle right now is MJF. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So, we then saw what came next?
I've got
Swerve
and Father Ass.
Yes, Daddy Ass. Billy Gunn, the one Billy Gunn. No, I'm sure he wants to forget that gimmick altogether with his sitcom theme song. So Swerve versus Billy Gunn. Billy Gunn has been a topic this week because D-Generation X had their reunion on Monday, sans Billy Gunn. But the crowd still got to do it. Road Dogg did his. The Road Dogg, Jesse James, and then the crowd did the badass Billy Gunn. They're saying my mic went bad. You got to tell me about these things, Cole.
Robot Will is back now. I'm hearing it. I wasn't hearing it for a second. Now I'm hearing it. It seemed to be a stream thing. Hello everybody. I'm in the middle of the screen. All right. Well, let's keep talking about Swerve and Father Ass. Yes. Daddy Ass
it's all
coming
good.
out.
I just have to refresh when I do that.
Daddy Ass coming out and D-Generation X is where you were. So
yeah. So so one thing real quick. I recognize, and I should have talked about this on Raw post-show this week. Road Dogg called themselves D-Geriatric X. Thought that was a good gag. Good line. However, he didn't refer to him and Billy Gunn as the Old Age Outlaws, and I thought that was just money left on the table.
That's a missed opportunity. It's sitting right there.
Complete missed opportunity. And I don't know. But either way, Billy Gunn don't look like an old age outlaw though, because that man took his shirt off and was Billy Gunn.
Yes.
Still just tall and jacked, and that man is almost 60. And
it's wild.
Yeah. He faced Swerve Strickland. And crowd was way into it. Billy Gunn was really over. And the Acclaimed still really over. Of course, Max Caster cut his rap on Swerve. Had some good digs in there. Got some Canada pops.
Yes. See, and anytime you mention Austin Matthews in Toronto and in a positive light, after we had already dug in on the Toronto Maple Leafs and their playoff record, the Blue Jays blowing a huge lead in their wild card game, we need to give them something. Give the people what they want, you know.
This was really the first opportunity to truly establish Swerve as a conniving heel, and he did just that. When he hit the Swerve Stomp at the end, 1-2, Billy Gunn kicked out, and Swerve looked flabbergasted by this. My hope was that he was just going to then go in there and hit him with 3 house calls, and then they like have to put Billy Gunn on a stretcher or something. But instead, he goes for the house call, and Billy Gunn rolls out of the way. Swerve then rolls him up and holds onto the ropes for a cheap 1, 2, 3. Then tells the camera to suck it. As the Acclaimed make their way out to help Billy Gunn out, they are interrupted by Smart Mark Sterling, who has revealed himself to be a trademark troll and has revealed that he actually trademarked the term "scissor me," which actually exists, by the way. His trademark on that, if you look that up, actually exists. Oh yeah,
wow.
They at least went far enough to to make sure that that's a legitimate trademark filing. He does own the trademark on scissoring, and determined that if the Acclaimed use it again, he will sue them. So,
which I don't know if you've looked on Twitter, but they seem to have no problem still tweeting out any scissoring stuff and all the wardrobe. But you know, you gotta, it's, you know, you can't just not. It's too good. It's too hot.
It's too good.
It's too hot.
I will say Swerve is getting there, and he's getting there very quickly as a top performer in AEW. I knew he would.
Yes.
And that part of that was just in knowing what they wanted in signing him when they signed him back in March. But also, guys, if you've been following me long enough, you should know I have all the faith in the world in that man. I'm literally wearing a shirt that has Swerve in the rain doing that.
Hey, you know, sometimes they refer to you on Twitter as Swerve's cousin, and it's like,
yeah, I know. He
And,
has a name, by the way.
He has a name, and it's definitely Cal California. Will Washington's just a front. There's no doubt about it. 100%. That's really primarily the reason that I'm on here, is to really investigate that. So I'll have a scoop on that later. But
but no, I see big singles things for him, and
100%.
you can see it starting to play out right in front of us. There's a stat that's going to be quite interesting, and you'll see in a little bit. Not now. I'm not going to bring that stat out yet, but it's a great stat. And so that was that.
Yeah, I think the moment I definitely enjoyed with all the DX stuff happening on WWE television is Daddy Ass is lining up the Famouser, and he goes to like start the suck it to go into it, and he immediately just turns it into the scissor.
Yeah.
That definitely got a reaction from the crowd.
Crowd
It
loved
was, I think he definitely bought into the, you know, I'm doing the hot thing right now. I'm part of one of the hottest, if not the hottest thing in wrestling right now. It's crazy how and it's amazing just like going back and watching like just like entrances for the Acclaimed, like February, March. Like if you go back and watch any of the entrances there, that crowd is like, okay. Like they're so like indifferent to everything, and they'll like still pop for Caster's lines. But like that, like it would be like, like that would be kind of it. And now like you hear the alarm of their entrance ring, and that crowd just absolutely loses their mind. So it's great to see what they're doing. I think this has been awesome for Swerve. I think Swerve is is one of the best right now going in the ring that can really tell a match with everything right here. And I love wrestlers who can do that. Like it's MJF is one of those who's really good in the ring with his face. Swerve also just like everything is done with intent, and it's meant to tell, you can really see what he's kind of going through in his mind through that. And that could be that's a really, really hard skill to master, but he's got it.
I think so too. So MJF is backstage, and before he could talk, he's interrupted by Stokely, and he is very annoyed. He tells,
the robot's coming back.
Oh, come on.
It's right at the beginning of every time we try to go on to a new segment.
I know.
Here comes the robot. So yes, well, we'll be talking about MJF. The only thing, and I will say, and I'm excited to hear what Will thinks about this, but
and the hard part is it's just this show,
and it's just is it really?
Yeah, this doesn't happen on Grapsody. We're literally about to do at the top of the hour. Ask Grapsody.
Are you saying it's my fault? Am I to blame?
This happens day after Dynamite all the time. It's a regular day after Dynamite thing. But I have a feeling it's when it's just two people. I think it's something with that. Yeah. So, anyways,
MJF backstage, Stokely.
Yeah, but he tells Stokely he's that him being interrupted is strike 2, and he tells Stokely to take his Carlton Banks wardrobe wearing ass out of his shot, and then he addresses. I thought MJF got real deep here. He talked about how being the bad guy and having to wake up in the mirror and see himself. And he talked about how you guys hate me. If anybody hates me, it's me. You guys have to, deal with me on Wednesday nights. I have to see myself in the mirror and know that I wake up having to be the bad guy. This felt like some of the first signs toward building sympathy for MJF. And I can't help but wonder where this is all going, because I can't trust MJF. He's built sympathy with me before. He cut that promo with CM Punk that got a lot of sympathy and then turned on us. I feel like that's probably where this is going. But in the meantime, it's interesting. It's very interesting.
It is. When I initially heard this promo, I had some mixed feelings about it, because I do feel like that promo, and it was because like we've gone down this road before with MJF. It was very, very similar to the promos he was cutting with Redacted that were happening a few months ago. What's interesting? I want to get your thoughts on this, Will. Do you think it was interesting that they had that be a backstage segment and not get an MJF pop and have him do it on stage? Do you think it would have had the same effect? I just feel like if MJF is there, they've been getting so many big reactions with MJF coming out. I thought it was interesting that it was backstage.
I think they probably wanted to reserve some of the MJF reaction stuff because I feel like you see what happened when MJF was just in the crowd there, right? Like he definitely helped derail a segment.
Oh, we're definitely gonna talk about that.
Yeah. And by the way, Ryan Ben says Stokely, Carlton Banks outfit wearing ass. OMG. Okay, hey, I have to ask. Because it all depends on who's hosting. Shout out to Ryan Ben for being part of so many of our shows that we do. I love seeing your name in the chats. So you're usually there when me and Denise are hosting a show. Denise says Orion Ben. I say Orion Ben. Which is it? Because both of us have said it very differently, and I have to know at this stage.
I think this lays into the Trekkie side of both of us. And like thinking space and like the Orion belt or something like that. But I read that as Orion.
Yeah, same. I need to know though, because I'll sit there with Denise and she'll read your chat messages and go Orion Ben, and I'm like, Is it? Who's
All
right
right,
here?
if you need me to pick up some cheap heat with Hollywood Salcedo, you just go like, no, Cole said it's Orion, and then then you can just deflect. So whatever you need, I'm here for you. No, I read it as Orion, but I might be wrong.
Okay. Well, we'll see. So we whatever, and I'll take any opportunity to bury my dear friend Denise. But check us out where we host After the Week every Sunday at can I tell you, Cole? What she told me this week, because she's on vacation this week. Yeah, Denise Salcedo's on vacation this week.
Is it vacation? I thought she was working.
She's working, but she's gonna have some fun.
Okay.
But either way, Denise in Mexico this week. And we're still doing After the Week. But the time we're doing it. Oh, yeah. So originally she told me 8 a.m. my time. And I was like, Denise, I showed her my alarm. I was like, I wake up at 8 a.m. on Sundays. What are we doing here? We got to move to 9. 9's the more reasonable time. I almost had to do a podcast at 8 a.m. It's cool, though. YouTube.com/Denise Salcedo After the Week.
No comment. I'm in California. If I say anything on here, I don't know. She might pop up.
But like that's the thing, right? It's like that would have been 7 a.m. Pacific
would have been
time.
early. That is early.
Yeah. I can live with what we're doing. So check us out at a special time, which is going to be 11 a.m. Eastern. So anyway, we had the next segment, which I thought was masterclass stuff. Jon Moxley addresses the world. Jon Moxley addresses the World Championship. He talks about what it takes to be a world champion. We've heard that kind of stuff from Moxley before, but this stuff was great. He talked about how you don't have time to be anxious when you're world champion. You don't have time for all of this, all of that, the things that the championship requires, that it's not easy. It's not all fun and games. There's constant target on your back. Everybody wants something from you. People crumble under the pressure, self-destruct, some faster than others.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah,
Not a me,
wink,
not a me.
wink. And then he said, and he loves it. He loves this job. He will absolutely take this job. And that brings him to Hangman Adam Page. Hangman then makes his way out. They go face to face. Hangman was world class here.
Yep.
Hangman Adam Page. He talked about being proud of the fact that, all the things Moxley said about him last week. He said it meant a lot coming from Moxley because he holds Moxley in high regard. He thinks Moxley is a great husband, great father, great man. But one thing stuck out to him that Moxley said last week, where he said that he called him
a kid.
But specifically, he said he was a good kid, right? Or not?
Yeah, good kid.
Yeah, something along those lines. And Paige took exception to that because Paige turned around and said that having been here this whole time, he's had friends come and go. It was like the first time that the Elite has really been addressed in a while. Though, if you've been watching Dark and Dark Elevation, Brandon Cutler has been excellent. So I think Brandon Cutler doing the best work of his career. If you haven't seen this week's Dark Elevation, and I don't watch Dark Elevation every week, but somebody said go out of your way to watch Brandon Cutler out there with Serpentico. It's going to be one of the funniest things you've ever seen. And then watch his match with Kip Sabian. I watched both. First off, Brandon Cutler coming out there. He's still repping the Elite. He comes out to the Elite theme song. He's out there, the Elite. He blows the cold spray everywhere. He is, honestly, Cutler. Like, Redmond in the chat said Cutler versus Serpentico 5 stars. Like, honestly, as far as, like, jokey, fun matches, it's up there. And, Cutler has been quite a hoot as on his own without the Elite there, but like still trying to rep the Elite. It's actually really great stuff. And I didn't really know he had that in him. But either way, other than that stuff, this is really the first time that I feel like the Elite's really been addressed. Paige talked about how his friends in the Dark Order are all disappearing. And Graham B says, well, Brandon Cutler equals live action Waluigi, and I love it. That's a good way to describe him. He really is. He's so great, though. Like, honestly, if you had told me 2 years ago that I would find Brandon Cutler as entertaining as I find him right now, I would not have believed you. I mean, I'm like, oh, the D&D guy? Yeah, no way. But honestly, as just like elite stooge who's still trying to keep their name and presence alive, great stuff. But anyway... and he talked about how his former friends all gone, but he's still here, and he says, he can't sleep at night. He's depressed. The meds ain't working. Great line there too. And he says he's a father. He's a husband. He's had to bury people, lower him into the ground. He's brought new life into this crowd, just like Moxley. And he does all of that because he is a man, damn it. And he punched himself in the gosh dang face, busted himself open. But I felt all of this from him. Really, the only thing that really hurt this promo for me, I wouldn't have put MJF out there. Definitely wouldn't have put the spotlight on him. And I think, because the crowd then started chanting for MJF. But, like, Hangman did excellent promo work here. Moxley, I thought, was good as always. I didn't realize how much I wanted to see these two with each other, but Moxley and Paige, I am ready for it next week. Paige also, obviously he didn't intentionally make himself bleed, but he played it off well because when he wiped his forehead, he wiped it on John's white shirt.
Yep.
Great touch. All of this was an A+ 5-star segment. Like, honestly, if it wasn't for the MJF stuff, I thought this was one of the best promos segments I've seen all year.
Yes.
Just intensity between two guys. And not just that, but it made me realize kind of what's been missing in pro wrestling across the board. And that is, and I don't mean this as a like, tribalism kind of thing, but I mean this is one of those segments where I can't accept the idea that across the board it's being done better in WWE, because this is one of those things where what I mean in what's missing across pro wrestling, I mean Impact, I mean WWE, I mean anywhere there's pro wrestling happening. Two guys intensely competing over one world championship and intensely wanting the world to know that they want it because of what it represents is something that I forgot I'm actually missing out on right now. Moxley telling us how much the title means to him, how hard it is to have that title, but that this is something that he is willing to do because of what the championship represents. Hangman then telling us what the championship represents, how he let it slip through his hands. Again, lots of Punk references here, by the way, because he referenced how he, in a moment of weakness, let it slip through his hands at Double or Nothing. Mm-hmm. Two guys who just intensely want this championship and want it to represent this championship. I love it. This is great stuff.
Old school, I think, is the way I would define it. Just like, it's like two guys who just want it so badly, and making the title fight about the belt and what it means. That's it's a tried and true method of getting people to care about a wrestling card. Sometimes you don't need to overthink it and make it very character driven. Sometimes, and sometimes, and I'm not saying like both sides work just as fine. I think what WWE is doing with the title, like they've turned the title picture into Succession, and I'm kind of digging it, mostly because of Sami Zayn. But
that's not a knock. Like, because my main gripe, because I have said before, I love Roman. I love what Roman's doing. My biggest gripe with what Roman's doing is that I don't feel like the rest of the card cares. And that's the problem I've had. I've had this issue where it doesn't feel like anybody else. Like we had, and part of it's because he's gone for so long. But I feel like it doesn't seem like the rest of the card is like, hey, I want to be that guy. I want to be the champion. Make me the champion. And like it doesn't feel like I feel like somebody should have a problem with Logan Paul stepping on their toes. There should be somebody on the roster going, wait. I've been here fighting my ass off. I want to challenge for that championship. Like, at least say it. Like, I want people to feel aggressively angry about wanting the championship. And that's just the thing I forgot how much I've wanted. But I want to see people get emotional over the title, about wanting to be the guy. And I love it. It's great stuff.
And it's playing right into what this Mox title run has been, which is the importance of that belt and what it means as far as carrying the banner and carrying the flag for the company, especially in the wake of everything that happened at All Out. And I think I was so bummed when Paige got done with just some of the most like passionate, incredible promo work I've seen this year, maybe in quite some time. I mean, everything from punching himself in the head, and he's probably giving himself a black eye for Tuesday. But everything up to that point, and then for the crowd to all of a sudden go MJF. I was like, no,
I know that. I hated it so much. I did not want MJF out there.
No,
and at least I wouldn't have put the spotlight on him. I would have just had him sitting there.
You know what I think, like, what seems to be the problem with those segments, because every time they've done these segments with those two and MJF is sitting up there, I feel like they just need to reserve showing MJF for the end. Like, him being there the whole time and him being always a focus, like during the promos, I think has been really hurting it. And really hurting the energy of the crowd. Cause now the crowd feels like it's got to like pay attention to two different things that are happening at the same time. And I feel like you can still get the effect that MJF is watching closely by, like, once they're done with their promos, show MJF in the crowd, like enjoying himself, having a good time. But because and even like Grand Slam was the worst case of it, because they kept cutting to the 2 box
during the match.
Oh my gosh. And I was just like, stop, what are you doing? So, I think he doesn't need to be like over the entire segment. I feel like MJF can be on at the end.
Tom says, Mox passionate, Hangman passionate, MJF sitting quietly. The 3 current belt contenders, and MJF's passion is highlighted by his silence. I mean, MJF wants to be the best, and he wants the championship. And another thing that highlighted was, so we have kind of the polar opposite, right, with the Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Championship, where Chris Jericho is trying to show that he doesn't care about any of this. But it means a lot to Bryan Danielson. Bryan Danielson and Chris Jericho went out there, and these are guys that you can trust in to have a great match. This was possibly my favorite match they've had in AEW. Alan Marks, by the way, says, here's the difference between AEW and WWE. AEW allows performers to fully own their characters, while WWE forces their performers to fit into someone else's vision of their characters. I feel like that's kind of starting to change now a little bit, and hopefully that's definitely a Vince problem. Vince, for sure,
yes,
especially in the last couple of years, was very much like, I don't care who I hired, you're here to play the role that I want you to play, more so than anything else. We saw that with Bearcat Keith Lee, right? But I really enjoyed this match. Chris Jericho and Bryan Danielson, I thought Bryan was really smart. So first off, Jericho makes his entrance. Starts with Judas, cuts to his Lionheart theme. Crowd is not happy about that, and sings Judas on their own. That it took me a minute to even realize what they were doing. But because I start listening, and then once I hear what have I become, I'm like, oh, they're actually singing Judas on their own. That's actually kind of cool. They were, because I swear Canada was like, there is no way in hell we came to this show to see our home country guy Chris Jericho out here and not get to sing Judas. Are you crazy? And they did it anyway.
They did it anyways.
Yeah. So I thought that was great stuff. But and they're asking in the chat, has Daniel Bryan fought Chris Jericho in WWE? Yes, twice. Bryan's first WWE match was against Chris Jericho, and then they also faced each other on the I don't know if it was the go home, but I know it was before Elimination Chamber 2013. But yeah. And Ace is saying that their all out match was better. I don't know. I thought that this had a little more structure. Like, granted, it had had a commercial break, but I just thought having this incredibly hot crowd, and the change in dynamic, because Bryan could sense that the fans weren't all there for him, and he played up and played into that and worked a little bit of some heelness here.
I love when he does that, by the way. It's so
Yeah.
much fun. Like, as
Yeah.
his face, like, you'll just see the character just like, it's like a switch just flips, and you just see him goading everybody. He's so good at just flipping on a dime with whatever's going on, and getting a feel for the crowd.
Yeah. No, I love this. I love this match. I had a lot of fun with it. Of course, there's a ref bump spot. Ooh, what does this mean? And so Daniel Garcia makes his way out, and he cracks.
He makes his way out. Is that how we're the everyone was talking about what a run with your elbows?
Yeah. he ran down to the ring and grabbed the belt, cracked Bryan Danielson. I won't say that I didn't see this coming like 2 weeks ago, because I did. I thought the turn was actually going to happen last week. I thought it was kind of clear in the Grimace promo, or I guess that's what I've been calling it in my head, because they were all wearing purple and all looked like Grimace. But in the big Grimace promo, Chris Jericho, I felt like Garcia there, that was the first hint that he was probably, at least for now, going to be staying with Jericho Appreciation Society, where I noticed he never officially declared himself out of the group. Even when he challenged them to the match and said, Bryan as my partner, it was always like kind of it felt like a friendly wager more than actually battling them. And the ultimate lesson that we ended up getting here was, it's clear Garcia is seeing Jericho's not wrong with everything Chris Jericho's been doing this whole time. He's been winning. It's been working for him. It worked at All Out. It worked at Grand Slam to win the title. It worked in that tag match. Bryan, on the other hand, has been losing. Bryan lost to Jon Moxley. Like, clearly, Daniel Garcia is seeing with his own eyes what works and what doesn't. Now, after the turn, of course, fans were not happy. Twitter has not been happy. They all embrace Garcia in a hug, and he still looks a little bit hesitant, as if to me to say, I'm going to have to take these guys down from the inside, because clearly everything they do has been working. And I do think that he will ultimately end up on the other side, but I don't think it's as simple as Bryan courted me, so he's going to take me. I think it is going to be more of a systematic destruction of the Jericho Appreciation Society. But he didn't seem fully embracing when they hugged him. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, he's I think the initial reaction to everything happening there was definitely, and even for me too, being like, wait, hold on a second. What is going on here? We've been teasing going one way, and here we go. We revert right back to kind of where we stood just a few weeks before. And I think probably where Twitter gets a little bit annoyed with this storytelling is because I think we've seen this happen with Britt and Jamie just recently. So we've had like the turn's gonna happen. Nope. And it's a once it happens, twice it happens. I think that's like viewing it just at that face value is what's getting people going on Twitter.
Right. And I feel like AEW has done this before, right? Where like they've teased, they've had people seem like they were going to go one way and then don't. Like God, Wardlow and MJF went on for a year and a half before like the actual turn happened. I don't think Jamie and Britt's going to go that long, but I think they feel they need to get through the Saraya feud first and then have Jamie turn. I still say take your time with Jamie. Don't pull that trigger yet. And it's clear that they see the value in Jamie because in the match, she was not the one pinned. We had a tag match that saw Toni Storm, my absolute favorite, Hikaru Shida, taking on Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker. Shida having her first appearance on Dynamite in a while, since before All Out. But yeah, this was great. Again,
it was.
This was great stuff. I thought that, look, everybody has their best match with Shida. Speaking of which, again, this week's Dark saw Shida take on Marina Shafir. Marina Shafir had her best match, surprise, with Hikaru Shida. And I thought just everybody out there killed it. But I thought this was a great showing for Shida and really let her put on for an audience that may have forgotten what she can do. I thought her exchanges with Britt were really good. I thought the exchanges with Jamie were really good. I thought Jamie got to have a great showing out there. And they got to protect Jamie from being pinned because I feel like keeping Jamie strong is really important right now. But also she needed to be on the losing side because Britt needed to lose here in order for the match for next Wednesday to be established, which is going to be Toni Storm defending the AEW Women's World Championship against Hikaru Shida.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want a really startling statistic?
I'm always for startling statistics. Let's go.
Okay. I don't think the chat's ready for this one.
Uh-oh.
So, people have noticed, and you should have noticed, things are different with Toni Storm than they've been really in the entire women's division since the existence of AEW. I had pointed out at like 8 weeks, I said, it's been 8 straight weeks of Toni Storm on Dynamite. I'm pretty sure no woman has gotten 8 straight weeks of appearances. People are like, what about Britt Baker? Britt Baker had not. Britt Baker had backstage segments as champion, things like that. But as far as 8 straight appearances in the arena on Dynamite, Toni Storm has gotten that. Now we're up to 10. The statistic I'm about to toss out. Toni Storm, when did she win the title, Cole?
When did she win the title? Well, that was at All Out, correct?
Yes.
All Out was the interim title.
Yes. It was last month, right? Beginning of September.
Mm-hmm.
After this match with Shida next week, Toni Storm will have had more matches as champion on TV. She would have had as many matches on TV in a month and a half as champion as Thunder Rosa had her entire reign going back to March.
Mm-hmm.
Thunder Rosa won that title March, had to step away in September. Toni Storm's about to have had as many matches as champion as Thunder Rosa.
Thunder Rosa went through a whole season change. It went from spring to summer.
Season. Yes.
Oof.
Toni Storm has had, I mean, she has been on Dynamite every single week. She has not missed a week since being champion. They have had Toni Storm on the show, and she was champion. She was on every week going into it. So I don't know. That's a big one.
That's startling to me. As far as, I'm sorry if there's sirens going on. They're all driving.
That's the sound of the
right
police.
But I was like, really now? No, but yeah, I think. I mean, I wonder. So here's really the question then. The question then becomes why? Why is that the case? Why are we seeing? Is this a concerted effort as far as them trying to give direction to the title picture with Toni Storm here and have her be more of a fighting champion than Thunder Rosa was?
I think it was a change of direction.
Yeah.
Coming out of All Out, and I think it was wanting to showcase a champion fully and on the regular. And Toni Storm is that champ right now, but more so than any other champ they've ever had. Shida had the unfortunate case of they ran out of people because when Shida was champ, she was champ during the period where a whole lot of people were locked down.
Yep.
And so once they burned through, they like because right after she won the title, Chris Statlander got injured. Right before she won it, Britt Baker got injured. Big Swole was at home, and Nyla Rose had just lost the title, and she was even at home for a long time. And then after that, but those were all people that she had beaten. And they had her beat who else had she beaten? Penelope Ford. And then it was like, okay, now we're gonna start just like bringing in random people. And they had her like doing the open challenges, beating random women, and that's how they ended up getting Thunder Rosa. But they didn't have the roster for that,
Right.
So they didn't have Riho. There were so many people that were missing during Shida's reign. Like I feel like if Shida had the reign, if she could have the roster now with that reign before, I think it would have been a lot stronger of a reign. I think it was a strong reign no matter what. She had it for over a year, but I think it would have been stronger had she been able to defend it against more. And they brought like during her reign, Ty Conti was signed. She defended it against Ty. Like they still tried. Like they brought in Ryo Mizunami. Like they kept bringing in people, but the roster on its own just wasn't strong enough. But then we got to the main event. The main event. PAC All Atlantic Championship defense against Orange Cassidy. This was the fourth time these two have faced each other. Really the third, because let's stop counting pandemic stuff because you're never going to go back and watch any of that stuff.
That's fair.
But Orange Cassidy and PAC, first time around, PAC got the victory. Second time around, PAC got the victory, but clocked Orange Cassidy. And I guess the second one did end in a no contest anyway, or a draw. It ended in a draw. So second time, PAC got the victory with the hammer. This time around, Orange Cassidy. Look, when Orange Cassidy comes in with a fire, he comes in with a fire. And he came in just a blazing. Orange Cassidy fired up, angry. Like he was angry on Rampage this past week, coming out to save Trent against PAC. And he looked good there. He was intense. I love intense Orange Cassidy. And I just thought this was great stuff. I thought this was all really good. These two work really well together. PAC doing the Orange Cassidy kicks and just all of this. This was just awesome stuff. But Orange Cassidy it was wrestling like he wanted to win. This wasn't even all that long, but I thought they used their time so wisely. And by the end of it, we had a brand new All Atlantic champion. Let me tell you.
Send the crowd home happy. Just send them home happy.
Let me tell you, speaking of pandemics.
Yeah.
I, for the rest of my life, will not take moments like this for granted again. Because PAC and Orange Cassidy. And Orange Cassidy getting this victory. Crowd going nuts. Showing the capacity crowd in Toronto. They're panning across. Confetti going everywhere. I thought to myself last night, God, I went a year and a half without that. I will never take that for granted again. That having those kinds of just feel-good moments. It was a really good feel-good moment. Jane playing as best friends make their way out. They get to give Orange Cassidy the hug. Got to give the people what they want. For some reason, Tony Schiavone noted on commentary that Orange Cassidy was... it was Battle of the Belts. But the Orange, he noted this was Orange Cassidy's 68th win. I felt like that only would have been necessary to note if it was like 69.
Not quite there. Not quite there, Tony.
There.
Almost.
Yeah. But Orange Cassidy's first title. He won his first belt. Been one of the top guys in AEW, and he's now a champion. Seeing that crowd go nuts for it. It was great stuff. It was a really good, feel-good ending that I just enjoyed. PAC and Orange Cassidy, I could watch them do this together for ages, but I just thought that they had a really great match here, and I feel like the fans finally got rewarded for being behind Orange Cassidy as long as they have been.
Yeah, two people whose style in the ring just they fit so naturally, and I think Orange Cassidy's always been one of those really kind of hard to pin on, like, where does he fit? Where does he fit in the roster? Because his character is so specific, but at the end of the day, he's a ridiculous talent in the ring. I still think his match with Ospreay at Forbidden Door is one of the better matches this year.
Oh, yeah.
I think, like, there's no doubt about it that, like, and when you see Orange Cassidy, it's one of those things that you see it for the first time and you're like, whoa, this, like, will blow you away. But at some point, like, you know his shtick, you know what he's going to be doing. And it's not that it isn't entertaining. It just ends up becoming a case of, okay, this character is what he is. What do you do with him? I think the title pictures had to develop as far as AEW is concerned, because for a while it was one belt. It doesn't seem like Orange Cassidy's going to be like, he's not going to, at least at this stage, going to be a world champion, like, carrying the banner of the company. TNT title comes out, still doesn't quite seem like he's even that belt. So having this All Atlantic title, and this is a title that he can kind of move around with and have matches with kind of anyone, anywhere, at any time. And that's kind of the nature of how this belt was kind of described. I think it's a perfect fit. And again, he's just a guy who can go anywhere and have a awesome match with anybody.
Yeah. And they seem to be heating up Ethan Page for him. So, like, that's the thing. That's why I feel like Ethan Page is definitely winning, because Ethan Page had already made his declaration he wants that belt.
Matt Hardy in that, right?
I know. It doesn't make any sense. Hey, we got some Humper chats, though. I'm sorry I got that phone call that interrupted. So I want to read Tony P. He said, I like both matches, but it does look like Hayter and Garcia's story is the same. I believe Hayter and Britt should go the Triple H and Orton route, having Britt screw Jamie again. And Garcia should say to hell with Chris and Brian and be on his own. I think that's exactly where they're both going. I think that. So one of my favorite Batista moments ever, Batista and Triple H moments in the build up to that. Do you remember Elimination Chamber? And it was New Year's Revolution 2005, the Elimination Chamber match.
I'm trying to think back into my I do not have the brain that Will Washington has. But
so there's a moment in that match where Batista's eliminated. And it's one of my favorite storytelling moments of all time, where Orton hits an RKO. So the last three are Orton, Batista, and Triple H. Orton hits an RKO on Batista, and they go, and then the referee counts 1, 2, and you see Triple H in the background start to stand up, and he sits back down. It's like he's about to break it up, and he's like, not gonna bother. And, like, he almost had Batista's back, but when it came time for it, he didn't. And, like,
he kind of looked like he cared for a second.
He cared for a second, and then, like, was like, nah. And that was one of those moments. And then when Batista finds out about that, when he watches it back and he sees, and he turns to Hunter like, you could have saved me. You could have done something. I've had your back this whole time. You haven't had mine. And that moment of realization for Batista is where things went in motion, and then he won the Rumble and then turned on Evolution. But that moment there was the moment where you saw the light turn on for Dave Batista. I want to see that for Jamie Hayter. I want to see that moment where she realizes she's had Britt's back all this time, but the moment it came time for Britt to have hers, she didn't. And that's where it finally turns on.
I hope they do it really subtly too. I'm not sure what exactly that is how that would play out, but, like, just something really subtle that, even if it's something we don't necessarily catch when watching it, but then, like, it does become like a review situation where Jamie goes like, that's kind of weird. Like, if there's some way that they can manage to keep us on our toes with that and really show a way that Britt costs Jamie in a very subtle way, that could be really, really, really good.
Yeah, that's what I want to see from those two. Let's see. Tony also says, another great OC Pac match. Who do you think will be the first non-contracted wrestler or someone from outside company to win any AEW belt minus ROH? Nobody. He'll never put the belt on somebody he's not under. Who he doesn't have a certainty is going to be able to stick around. I don't think he's going to do it. And Jennifer says, for Dad, Will have a hot toddy and slather in Vicks. Feel better. Welcome, Cole. Thank you. And let's check out ratings before we wrap up here. Ratings. I already know what they are, guys. But
they were ready for the ratings then. They're ready for the ratings now.
AEW Dynamite did 983, so they're back below 1 million by about 17,000. Rating was a 0.32, and that was good enough to put them at number 4, behind the MLB playoff games and Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. So there are 2 MLB playoff games.
And one of those games was rain delayed, so it wasn't supposed to be 2 playoff games going on at the same time. But
yes, so that's kind of a like middling, unremarkable. Like I saw the chat kind of arguing over whether or not that was like terrible. I don't think it was terrible. I think once you're out of reach of 1 million, then I think you can kind of start talking about that. But it's like within 17,000.
right.
I don't know.
With some pretty easy to point to contributing factors to that.
Right.
So
I put that kind of a middling. Doesn't really. There's no one way or the other about that one, because literally 17,000 viewers is the difference between, which by the way is like 10,000 is margin of error, and so
right.
17,000 is like,
yeah.
So I don't know. That's not really it. Next week is going to be really interesting because the war is back. NXT versus Dynamite is next Tuesday.
Oh my God. It's turn on televisions. Which one? I don't know. One's got a big title match. I think we know which one we're watching.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see the shows against each other again.
It is.
And how they stack up against each other. The Wednesday night war has come to Tuesdays.
Tony's got strong feelings when, another company wants to broadcast some shows on the same nights that he does. Now, granted, this is not the same situation as the All Out Scrum and how he got mad about them having 2 pay-per-views over that weekend, because that was having 2 pay-per-views over that weekend. This is a case of, I believe it's because of the Major League Baseball playoff schedule and TBS, TNT holding those rights to it. So I think that is what is pushing this.
And as the chat pointed out, NXT did a good number. So it did this week. So therefore, who knows? NXT's heating up right now, and they've got Halloween Havoc coming up. Here we go.
We'll see.
We'll
see what happens. And there are some good matches on both of those cards. So I don't sleep on the NXT stuff that's happening down there.
Also, don't sleep. Coming up right now, as soon as I hang up here, I don't even get to sit around and talk to Cole anymore, because we are going straight into Ask Grapsity right now. Head on over to FightfulSelect.com. We're going to be answering your questions, me, Reg, and Phil. Doing it right now. Join us next week. I guess Day After Dynamite might be on Wednesday. I haven't talked to Sean about that, and I know that we actually have a schedule, so I don't want to run into listing your boy, so I may have to do the show on Thursday and call it Day After Dynamite. I don't know. Guess we'll see. In the meantime, for Cole Henderson. Cole, what do you want to plug? Plug.
Just plug my Twitter. I'm tweeting about all kinds of wrestling over there, at Cole Train, COALE Train, all one word. And boy, we're getting ramped up into Cole's sports season of the Avalanche and the Celtics. So I will be a menace on Twitter. It's going to be great. But just keep track with all the wrestling stuff over there.
All right. See you next time. Have a great day.